Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Real Hawk Talk. This is Brian Nemhauser, at Hawk Blogger on Twitter, and want to welcome in some special guests we've got today, and some not as special, but still pretty cool folks that you're more familiar with that are joining us again. It's been a while since we've had a chance to talk Seahawks. It's been a while since we've even had a show. So it's just good to see people other than the folks in my household, to be totally honest. And tonight's a special night. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world, whether it's COVID and what's been going on there with quarantine and stay at home. And we did a show back, I can't remember, a month or two ago. It feels like a while ago, where we did a fundraiser to help support kids that are not getting food because school is getting canceled and they're having to stay at home, and ended up raising a bunch of money for charity. And we've dedicated everything we do on this show is all charitable, and we're able to donate as well. A record this year in terms of what the show is donating to charity. We donated $40,000 to allinwa.org, which also is really supporting the Seattle Foundation, which is a great charitable organization in the area. And they basically support the folks that are most in need. It's kind of like an investment fund for local Seattle charities. And they vet all the charities, and they get to the ones that are most in need. And one of the things we really liked about All in Wa and the Seattle Foundation in general is that they're really looking at the communities that are most impacted by COVID. So it's not just general stuff, but small businesses. It is unevenly impacted, communities of color, migrant workers, other folks, as well as, students and others. So they've got a lot of varied charities that they're working with. And so we're really, really happy and appreciate all your support as listeners and readers. And putting up with Nathan and Evan's takes on things over the years. So all of those things are greatly appreciated. And tonight we wanted to continue that. There's a really, really both troubling and important movement going on right now. The movement's not troubling, but what's caused it is. And wanted to really, as a show of support for what's going on in the Black community, to do a show that all the proceeds we get tonight are going to be donated to Black Lives Matter. And so a lot more we can talk about there. I definitely want to primarily focus on the Seahawks, as that's what people come to hear about, and we'll talk about that. But I think we're going to talk about how this movement and impact is going to impact the game that we love, and how should it impact the game that we love. So with all that, let me welcome in a few folks. You've got Evan Hill, at Evan in SEA, even though he's not in SEA, on Twitter. How you doing, Evan?
Hey, asshole, can we not tempt 49ers fans tonight? That would be something I would appreciate, Brian. I am doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing well, dude. It's good to see you. We've also got up there in the safe confines of Canada, Jeff Simmons, at Real Jeff Simmons on Twitter. How you doing, dude?
I'm all right, man. I'm hanging in there. The whole world seems crazy right now.
It does. It definitely does.
I'm learning a lot. Being in Canada is just, my eyes are definitely open what's going on in the world. It's definitely changed. The last 2 weeks have been really eye-opening for me.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk more about that. Nathan Ernst, at Nathan E11. Someone in chat thinks that I have a 6 stash. I think that we're talking about maybe Nathan's. I don't think I have a stash.
Mine's gone. I finally cleaned up a little bit. I dropped the quarantine stash, so just back to a boring old beard.
Well, I don't think it's boring, Nathan. I think it's excellent. I'm happy to see you again. Now, the four of us are just the normal, ordinary, average folks, but the special guests we've got on. First of all, we'll start with Ben Arthur. Ben writes for SeattlePI.com. You can find his stuff up there. Fantastic follow on Twitter. If you aren't already there, make sure you do that. Ben, I think this is the first time we've had you on the show. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. And again, kind of thanks for having me on. But yeah, first time I've been on here, but I see all your guys' stuff on Twitter all the time. And the Seahawks Twitter, as we all know, is always active, and you guys are always at the forefront there. So yeah, I always see you guys on that. But yeah, this is my first time live with you guys, so appreciate the opportunity to speak with you guys a little bit.
Awesome. And you can find Ben on Twitter at Ben Y Arthur is his Twitter handle. So please make sure you go and follow him. And last but certainly not least, a returning guest to the show, a friend of show, Michael Sean Dugar, and goes by at Mike Dugar on Twitter, MikeDugar. Mike, dude, it's been a minute. How are you doing, man?
I'm all right, man. Good day, I'm okay. Bad day, I'm okay. I've been using that movie quote like everywhere I go now. It's from the Wolf of Wall Street movie with Shia LaBeouf. I can't remember what it's called right now. So somebody probably knows. But yeah, I'm all right. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, so there's a lot to cover. We'll definitely get into some of the Seahawks stuff going on, but first, love to open it up. Especially Mike and Ben, you guys have been super active. Nathan, you've also been active on the topic going on right now with Black Lives Matter and what we're trying to raise money for today. I mean, what does this movement mean to you? What are you seeing as places where people can make the most impact? And why don't we start with you, Mike?
Well, the Black Lives Matter means everything to me, right? I'm a black dude, and I wanna matter, right? Like that's it's been a thing for a minute. Lately, the thing that's been standing out the most is all the white people that have felt the need to get involved. For the most part, whether it's people I know, people I don't know, asking for ways how they can help. And I can understand, like I've taken on an interesting role in that regard. Like I put out like a call to action on like my Instagram, and I like asking all white people I know to, hit me up if you have questions. And I did the same thing on one of the Zoom calls with Seahawks writers when Bobby Wagner was on, letting all my coworkers know I'm here. And that's a tiring thing, which is why a lot of black people don't want to do it, right? We get to the point where like, you're X amount years old. It's not my job to teach you, American history, right? Which is fine. I just understand that there's some of us got to do it, right? Like we just have to, and that's been really encouraging. I can't remember my man's name over there who writes for Kook Center, but he just did a great piece, basically like an open kind of letter for white people to have resources, why this matters, why they should get involved, and how they can kind of educate themselves. John Boyle of Seahawks.com did the same thing. I tweeted about both of their stories yesterday, I think. So those are just both like, and to see the feedback they both got, especially John's, because his went up first, that's been really encouraging because I can't remember who just mentioned it, that it's been eye-opening. It's like for me, and I don't know about Ben, but I would imagine it's similar. Our eyes been open to this for a while, since we was kids. And I don't know what took so long, but I'm glad it's happening now that everyone's got to the point where they can't stay silent. Not everyone, but people have gotten to the point where they can't stay silent on this. And that's what we've been waiting for it feels like forever. So that's been the main thing that's kind of been standing out. That's been like a positive amid like all this tragedy.
Yeah, Ben, you've been really vocal on Twitter about this as well. And to Mike's point, I've talked to plenty of my friends who are similar sentiment as Mike, is like, I don't want to be out there telling all the white folks what they need to do. Like, you guys are adults, figure it out, correct some of the problems you've created. I get that. What's been your kind of approach and what's been your mindset going through what's a pretty turbulent situation?
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of start like Mike, I mean, this is, an important thing to me too, because, I'm a black man. There's different kinds of blackness too, right? I mean, my story is a little bit different than Mike because my parents are African immigrants. They came to the U.S. So I'm, I think that means I'm first or second generation, but I at the end of the day, blackness is always, it's perceived as the same, right? The purpose of Black Lives Matter is that, Black people aren't treated the same. Black people are disproportionately, impacted by, victims of police brutality. Black people are disproportionately, racially profiled. Black people are disproportionately, adversely impacted in so many ways in American society. And so yeah, that's why that's why it means so much to me. And kind of like what Mike was saying, I mean, this feels different right now, right? Just because of so many white people speaking out specifically, because I've seen this narrative played out so many times, right? Like a Black man gets killed, people care about it for like 2 weeks. It's at the forefront of people's minds. Maybe it seems like everyone is on Black people's side, and then after 2 weeks, when the news cycle moves on, it's like everyone else kind of moves on, but the Black experience is still the same. And so with the George Floyd video, it really seems like there was kind of a tipping point. I don't know, I mean, there's been really like brutal murders we've seen caught on video before, but I think just honestly, I think it's with like with COVID and people stuck inside and people having all these pent up emotions, and then when you see something like that that's just so blatantly racist, the Minneapolis police officer with his neck on George Floyd's his knee on George Floyd's neck. I think it just woke people up, and that's been really, really great to see. And I'm encouraged, right? We've seen protests for like 2 straight weeks. It's crazy. And so, the tide is definitely shifting a bit. Things are starting to happen, the defund the police movement, which I don't know if you guys want to talk about that, but that's been, really, really great to see as well. And, at first, it was really an emotional roller coaster for me at first. And there's also the numbness too of, just this always happening to Black people and no one seeming to care, but it just feels different this time. And we're seeing so many people speak out, so many athletes speak out, so many prominent white athletes speaking out. And I think people are finally realizing that, racism is especially against Black people, it's not a political issue, right? This is human rights. This is civil rights. And so, yeah, I've just been really happy to see kind of, the tone shift nationally. So that's been a good thing for me.
It's amazing and helpful to hear. I think one of the pieces that I know folks are curious about, I mean, it's a very small aspect of what is a much larger issue, but how does this translate and impact the NFL? And the NFL was at the forefront in both good and bad ways, depending on various points of view on this issue years ago, and how it's handled it. Certainly, lots of people have lots of strong opinions about that. The leagues come out and apologized for a lot of what they did and acknowledged some of the things that they did wrong. I'm curious, and Mike, if you wouldn't mind starting, like, what is your expectation about, like, in a league that is predominantly Black men, what's your expectation about how this could potentially impact the NFL?
Well, the NFL doesn't have any credibility when it comes to this issue, and I think it's important lately to kind of distinguish what the NFL is, because you could be talking about Goodell, you could be talking about the league office, you could be talking about the owners, and it's all three. But it's important to kind of point out, each step. For example, the NFL, quote unquote, Roger Goodell put out a statement. I can't remember when, but it sucked, right? It was super hypocritical and everything. And the players, like Michael Thomas, Saquon Barkley, some others, united with people in the league office. One guy particularly was at the forefront of it. We got a story on it on The Athletic now. So that's the league office kind of acting like in a form of rebellion against what Roger Goodell put out on behalf of the league. And then you have Roger Goodell putting out a statement, which is really, his video statement is kind of on behalf of himself, right? Which goes to the third section of like the NFL, which is the owners. The owners really haven't said a lot of anything, if you think about it. And even when they do, it's like, I think this 49ers owner gave some money and things like that. They put together videos and stuff, but I think there's a big difference here, and maybe I'm making too much of it, but perhaps putting a statement on your NFL account, like if you're the Texans, you put it on the Texans Twitter account versus putting your name on it. So you're speaking from a place as a human being versus a corporation. And we really haven't seen that a lot. And that's really where we can get some momentum in this whole thing, because it's not necessarily just, I'm gonna throw some money at some stuff and let you guys figure it out. Here's $1 million, go find some black groups and you guys hit the ground running and do your thing. It's just because the same way I'm encouraged by people, white people hitting me up asking what they can do, I want to be encouraged by the NFL owners who have all this power, who are these multimillionaire and billionaire white people, to use their influence the same way, right? If you're the owner of like the Falcons, don't just tell Julio Jones that you care about him, right? Go tell your other rich buddies that you care about Julio too. Tell them why, and then tell them why they need to care about Julio as well. And then you guys take the next step to make some change. NFL owners are very powerful, and not just across the country, but in their respective areas too. Like, how many people in Texas are more powerful than Jerry Jones? Right? Think of all the change he could make if he was down with Black Lives Matter. Right? All the politicians he could sway, all the other companies that he could get on board, just all the other powerful, shot callers, just in that state alone, that could be huge, right? And you can apply that same thing to, the dude who owns the Dolphins, dude who owns the Jags, Bob Kraft. These people have so much power, right? And it's just a statement or throwing some money at things, which I understand from their point of view. They've been able to throw money at stuff to either make it happen or make it go away their whole lives. Right? That's kind of how the space in which they operate, and I can kind of understand that's where they come from. It's our job as media, as black people, as the players, as whoever, to call that out and call to action. Hey, yo, Robert Kraft, cool. You hang out with Meek Mill and you do, and you rock with your black players or whatever. You guys put out a statement. Cool. Next step is you're tight with the president. Now, maybe he's a lost cause, but like that, your partnership there, your allyship there, you can do good things there. And that's what I want to see, from the league. Obviously, the Kaepernick should be back in the league as well, but they have so much power. Like, you know how powerful it is to be a white billionaire? Like, come on, man. You know how much change you can enact if you use your powers for good instead of like exploitation, like they're so used to doing. That would be so huge. And I would hope that that's the impact. I don't think it will be. I think we'll get a lot of lip service and some more great social media videos and stuff like that. But if there was ever like a perfect scenario, it's where the owners get on board and use their power and privilege, to help make some change.
Yeah, Ben, I mean, Mike spoke a lot eloquently about what he hopes happen. Would you mind talking a little bit about what you think will happen?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Mike. I mean, what I think will happen is just a lot more kind of lip service. I mean, what we know when it comes to issues like this, race, the NFL it's hypocrisy, right? Like you come out with it. But first of all, like applaud like the players for taking it upon themselves. Michael Thomas, Patrick Mahomes, those guys for getting together and putting out that important message, basically forcing Goodell's hand. But I mean, when it comes to kind of issues like this, the NFL is always trying to cover its ass, right? Like it's just trying to get the statement out, kind of make people happy. Like even in Goodell's video, like I wanted to see an apology toward Kaepernick for Kaepernick, right? Because you say you're with your players and you're for everything they're saying, Black Lives Matter, We got to end systemic racism, all this, like, these power, like Goodell basically said what the player said verbatim in his video, but then the person who kind of raised that issue in the first place, who brought this to your attention 4 years ago, is still out of the league. So I think, the NFL has a lot of work to do, right? They need to put more action behind their words. I think what we saw with Goodell's video was an important step, but I just don't know how much action, we're realistically going to see until, like Mike said, like the owners are really leveraging their privilege as, white billionaires, to talk to lawmakers and whatnot to really move the needle. But I think that kind of goes back to my point about the players, because I think the players are really realizing how much power they have, right? To really force Goodell's hand the way they did, like within 24 hours of the players video coming out, Goodell came out with a video from his, basement, basically supporting what the players are saying. So I think it's on the players to continue and, be persistent about forcing the NFL's hand on issues like this, because the players are the product, right? They're what bring the revenue in. Like if they don't have the players, particularly like the black players, I mean, they don't have a business. So I think it's on the players to continue to put the pressure on the league to actually do something and not just make statements and, save face and all that. I think that's the ultimate question. I don't, so to answer your question, I mean, right. I mean, I think it's just going to be a lot more lip service until the players continue to do more of like what they did with the video they released a few days ago.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. I got a question for, actually, I'll shoot this one over to Mike. Mike, how, growing up on the East Side in Seattle, like I know a ton of like white privileged Seahawks fans like myself who really want to be better allies to the movement. Like I really share your concern. It was either you or Ben who shared that, after a couple of weeks, you're worried that this is just going to be like a social media fad where everybody's changing their profile pictures to black and things like that. What are things we can do, as white privileged people to be better allies to you guys, better allies to the movement? What things can we sort of put in place as a habit, maybe long-term, to sort of sustain the change that you guys are looking for?
I think it starts with just calling out, the bullshit when you, can we cuss on here? Too late.
You can cuss on here. Don't worry about it.
Absolutely.
Calling out the bullshit when you see it, So I've been giving the examples to, people close to me. I'm like, yo, you got some in-laws that say all lives matter, right? Call it out. Don't just like laugh at it or, whatever, or ignore it at the table and then go back and like tell me that, oh man, my uncle said this. Like, what? No, man, call it out right then and there. You got somebody talking crazy on their Facebook wall about, oh, they kill white people at the same rate or at a higher rate, which A, is not true, but, B, if that's how they think, call that stuff out. Have those tough conversations with coworkers, bosses. Well, be careful with the bosses, but family members, spouses, these are going to be very hard conversations, right? These are good. It's in a lot of scenarios, you're going to get white people who are like my age, I'm 27, who are going to be having conversations with like their 50-something-year-old parents who have thought a certain way for a very long time, who have probably never thought about operating from a place of privilege. And you're going to come at them with like, hey, dad, seeing color is actually a good thing. Like being colorblind is actually really insensitive. They're going to talk to you crazy. Right? You may sever some relationships with this stuff, but it matters, right? I think that's the biggest thing people can do, like on the ground, because we need an attitude shift. Because when we get an attitude shift, we get a behavior shift. At least in my mind, you get someone who used to think that being colorblind and not seeing color was the way to go. You explain to them that, like, no, you should see color and then still treat everyone fairly, right? Because you can do two things at once in that regard. You explain that to people, and maybe when it's time for them, to vote or whatever, or to donate, you get like different behaviors. And that's something that will never expire. you're always going to come across, for the most part, people who hit you with those taglines when you, there's 4 of them for the most part, when you're talking about race and specifically police brutality. You're going to get, well, what about black on black crime? You're going to get, well, they kill white people too, they being police. You're going to get all lives matter, and you're going to get I don't see color. Any of those 4, if you just call those out, if you're on people about those things and explaining to them and offering how they can educate themselves, because white people listen to other white people. And that's just how America works. They don't listen to black people. If they did, we'd have fixed this already, right? Because we've been at this for a minute. So it takes you guys, but it takes some uncomfortable conversations. And I know like white people aren't sitting around playing beer pong just talking about like why there should be reparations, right? But I don't necessarily think it should be that. But I mean, you guys see this stuff, you know. I mean, I went to Washington State, right? Predominantly white school. Like I get it. I know what the convos look like when I'm around and when I'm not. And there's plenty of opportunity to call out some bullshit and like have a civil conversation too. And like some of your MAGA friends, you might just walk away from because their conversations are going to infuriate you. Trust me, I know. But those conversations can go a long way. I'd encourage everyone to go read what John Boyle posted on Facebook. I think he tweeted it as well, and I shared it. It's stuff like that that can be so helpful, like explaining your privilege, explaining their privilege, and then being like, look, this is how we can help. In addition to like donating to like Black Lives Matter and stuff like that, or the Northwest Bail Fund, Pacific Northwest Bail Fund, or just, you know, being out in the streets protesting, those things are helpful as well. But I think when we get like a kind of an overall attitude change, we can start getting the people we need in power, you know, whether it's local politicians or whatever. And then we can start, you know, getting actual change to like funding education instead of giving the police $400 million, you know, and things like that, you know, mental health, you know, after school activities, whatever it is that's not giving police a bunch of tear gas. And we can get there if we have an overall attitude shift in the people. That at least that's my theory on it. That'd be my suggestion to everyone.
Do you guys find that it really helps the message while you're talking for Evan to be shoving his face the burrito? Is that like communicating the gravity of the situation?
All right, let's be clear here. It's Taco Tuesday. We don't forsake Taco Tuesday.
He's not wrong.
Yeah, there might be some white privilege conversations about where Taco Tuesday fits in the priority, but that's okay. I just, you know, let's call it out. Hey, Jeff, you had a question. What do you want to? I know you wanted to get in there.
Yeah, you guys have heard from players. I thought Russell and Bobby were particularly strong on the topic in your Zoom calls, but Mike made a good point earlier about the power of the owners. And the Seahawks don't really have the more traditional football owner. Joni Allen kind of takes a back seat. So the guy, I guess, the voice of the organization is now Pete. And Pete hasn't talked to you guys, I don't believe, yet. And Pete had that podcast with Greg Popovich and Kerr, and some of the people were rolling their eyes at some of his comments about Kaepernick, considering that he didn't sign him and hasn't yet. So what have you guys made of how Pete has handled the whole situation? What would you expect that he can do? And did you have the same reaction to the Kaepernick comments? And I guess what's your take on how he's handled this whole thing?
You want that one, Ben? I'll go after you. You go first.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely put myself in the kind of the roll your eyes category. I mean, he's saying all the right things, right? But then we know a couple years ago, you know, I wasn't on the beat at the time, but the Seahawks reportedly, you know, we're going to have Kaepernick in for a visit, and then that was squashed because he wouldn't tell them if he, you know, if he was still going to kneel during the playing of the anthem. So yeah, it was kind of a bit of an eye roll for me. I don't know. I think it's just kind of I don't know if in is the right word. It's just like, because everyone is talking about it now, right? And it's almost fashionable to say Black Lives Matter and to speak out against racial oppression. So I think it's just the easy thing for like I don't know. I'm just basing this on what Pete has said, right? Like I just know that you know, it's just easy for kind of people to be about the movement now and to say all the right things. but are you actually acting in accordance to those words, right? So I don't know, Mike, if you want to tackle this more articulately than me, but it was kind of a big eye roll for me when I heard Pete's words on that podcast.
Oh yeah, I've been thinking about this topic for about a week now. So I'll try to keep it as concise as I can. So I thought Pete sounded like a big disingenuous hypocrite on that episode with a flying coach with Steve and Greg for a few reasons. So in 2016, when Kaepernick first was kneeling, Pete kind of told the line. He just wanted everybody to be together. Right? Remember right after Kaepernick kneels, it's towards the end of the preseason, and the Seahawks and every other team in the league is kind of figuring out how to react to it. And their first game is 9/11 that season, right? So there's a lot of pressure there. I think Pete had the police department and the fire department at practice leading up to the week of that game. So there was a bunch of mixed messages there. I think Jeremy Lane was the only Seahawk sitting at the time, and I think he stopped after they locked arms against the Dolphins in 2016. But where it really sounded disingenuous from Pete is this could have not been any closer to him than what happened to Michael Bennett in 2017. Right, Michael Bennett is on YouTube right now. I just looked at it a couple of days ago. You can see it. He is pleading for his life, gun to his head, right, by the Vegas police. It's like August 27th or something like that, whenever the Mayweather fight was, right? And then Michael Bennett gets up on the podium and cries, after like explaining it to us in the media, like a week later, right? So for all the Seahawks, whether it's I know Paul's not here anymore, but like whether you're John or any of the coaches, other players, it was as close to you as it could possibly be, right? Other than it happening to you or like a family member. Like you see Mike every day, right? And you guys have seen Michael Bennett. He's a happy-go-lucky guy, funny dude, got the great quotes, and you hear him pleading for his life. He is scared to death. And when Mike was protesting in 2017, this is before the Vegas incident, Pete said, I can support him in his issues. That's a very important wording there, his issues. But I think we should all stand for the flag. Or excuse me, we should all stand for the anthem. That was like in August of 2017. So for Pete to now have tweeted Black Lives Matter twice in the last week and come out and said that, we owe a great deal to Kaepernick. I think he called the protests, he used the word incredible, describing all the protests across the country, which is a very Pete thing to do. I want to know, he hasn't spoken to us yet. He will this week. I really want to know what has changed, if anything, because if he says nothing, then okay, I'm assuming this is very, very disingenuous, because I know they started the social justice fund that the Seahawks have in 2017. I believe Doug Baldwin spearheaded that more than anybody, but it's cool that they let that happen. That's great. But with the effort and energy that Pete is showing right now was not the case, A, when this happened to his own player, when it's B, having his own backyard as well. We've had this happen. And this is not just Pete, but it's every team, but he asks about Pete specifically. That's why the whole NFL seems disingenuous, all their statements and stuff. This ain't new. It's not the first time it's on video. It's not the first time it was a strangulation. Eric Garner was as well. So and that was also on video that also went viral. So it comes across that way, not only for those reasons, disingenuous, not only for those reasons, but then with Ben to that as well. The Seahawks called Kaepernick for an interview in 2017. Right? They called him. That's how it works. The agent can call, but the team is who initiates these interviews. 2017, right? Chose Austin Davis over Colin Kaepernick because Colin was too good to be on the team. Right? Stupidest shit I've heard. But whatever. Everyone we let that rock and let it go. Right, 2017. They run it back in 2018. Call him again. Called him in 2018. Said, "Hey man, come out for this workout." Right before he even gets out here. Hey man, what's up? You still this protest thing? What's going on here? He's non-committal in his response to the Seahawks. Workout canceled. Right. Okay. So and then Pete kind of danced around that, but never really denied it. But either way, it's very clear. In 2018, the Seahawks did not sign Colin Kaepernick. They canceled his workout for reasons that did not have to do with football. At the very least, we know that. There was some varying reports about whether they asked about his plan or specifically the kneeling or whatever. Whatever it was, they didn't ask about his QBR or, his 5-step drops or any of that other football stuff, right? So to do that, to deny employment in the name of whatever you want to call it, I don't know. They denied employment for reasons that didn't have anything to do with whether he was good at football. To do that and then turn around and tweet Black Lives Matter and say, oh, a tremendous amount to him and put out these new empathy statements that Pete's put out before that are just dry as hell. I thought all of that came off as real disingenuous, unless something has clicked for him, unless he felt some connection to the George Floyd video, or, you know, it elicited some response within him that's different than before. That's going to be hard for me to buy from Pete, just because he's not like living in a bubble, right? He's the guy who brings Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to practice and Bill Russell. You know, like he does know what's going on. And I think for a lot of people, the difference has been knowing what's going on, like knowing police brutality is a thing and knowing that it's a problem. And that's a very subtle difference, but it matters. And like Pete has kind of been, you know, with the knowing it's a thing. And now he's transitioned to, at least with his words, knowing and acknowledging and wanting to do something about it being a problem. And until you explain to me what has changed there, I mean, it's good that he has like come out and said this stuff, but until you explain to me like what's clicked for you, it comes across as like you're just rolling with the trend right now, because that's what everyone else is talking about. Because they could have been doing this when your own player was face down on the concrete in Vegas, gun to his head, right? That was the time to act, right? So so when you ask about Pete, man, I've been thinking about that. That's why I can remember all these dates and stuff, because I've been thinking about it, looking back into it. That was really bad on the part of the whole NFL and specifically the Seahawks. Like, they could have used all of this energy to ride for Black Lives Matter, and one of their own freaking players nearly got his head blown off by the police.
There was a really like poignant moment in that podcast for me where Pop says something to the effect of leadership and courage go hand in hand. And I think that Pete has shown a few times, like you're saying, you know, a lack of courage on this. And I think that's kind of what you're calling out too with the allyship, right? Like, it's one thing to tweet out Black Lives Matter or change your Twitter avvy or whatever. But it's another thing to have those hard conversations with family members and people close to you, right? And so this moment requires, you know, kind of a lot of courage from white people to have these hard conversations and to not let this drop and to actually act on what a lot of people are saying right now.
Yeah, no, for real, man. And courage, that is the right word. And I don't want to sound rude with this, but I don't want white people to get too much credit for doing like the basic shit that Black people have been like doing
Sure.
with much higher degree of difficulty and far more risk, right? Like, yeah, I kind of have those emotions when I see like Carson Wentz put out a statement, or like Matt Ryan or something like that, or even Joe Burrows or Trevor Lawrence or something like that. I mean, that is really great, right? But I think in the past we would have seen those things and wrote think pieces and like, oh man, look how great it is that like Aaron Rodgers cares about this, blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, your pat on the back only lasts so long, right? Because there's been people doing this for a very long time, and it takes a little bit more courage, I think, to do like with Kaepernick or Kenny Stills or Eric Reed or Malcolm Jenkins or even like Josh Norman, Michael Thomas, the other Michael Thomas. There's just so many guys who are really doing a lot of good work. And it's really like scary to stick their necks out there, you know, the way that they have. Especially you look at someone like Malcolm Jenkins. It's like, not only is Malcolm Jenkins sticking his neck out there to fight police brutality, which is going to piss some people off, he's sticking his neck out there kind of in opposition to Eric Reed and Kaepernick, which is getting him like the Uncle Tom label. So like he's getting it from all the sides. That's probably why he went the hell off on Drew Brees and told him to shut the fuck up. It's like, dude, I'm stressed. I'm working hard out here, and you're talking about your great granddaddy in the war. That's PSA before we move on. Don't be Drew Brees. Drew Brees that was fucking terrible. That was very, very, very bad for a lot of reasons. And now he's backpedaling and coming at the president, and he's gonna have to do a lot. He's gonna have to join the NAACP to get people back on his good side after he's just botched.
I have one last question on that. I have to follow up with that, Mike. Do you think his apology is or was genuine?
I don't think so. So here's why. Here's my thing with apology. It's the same thing I kind of hinted at with Pete. You got to explain to me what the difference is. He said, like, after talking with his teammates or whatever, cool, what did you learn from them? I think we make this error a lot with like celebrities when they like get drafted or do something and we dig up their old tweets and their like reasoning is, I was young and dumb. I did this thing in the past, but that doesn't represent who I am. That's like the main one. Okay, explain why. Explain why you had homophobic tweets in 2011, it's 2019, and you don't now. Like, how did you gain a level of empathy to change your ways, or where you had sexist tweets or racist tweets? If you really changed, you can explain it. I would like us to do that with Drew. Cool, Drew. You claim to have recognized what you said was wrong because Malcolm Jenkins and Michael Thomas probably cussed your ass out. Great. What about you getting chewed out changed? Like, why is specifically, why is the bringing up World War II the way you did just the dumbest shit ever? Like, I'd love for him to explain why that was. So the reason I don't think it was like genuine, because Brees said the same thing in 2016. So that means 4 years later, he's either stupid or doesn't want to get it, right? Or a combination of both. So I don't believe that his whole mindset had just changed in 24 hours of getting chewed out by some teammates. If it has, I need to hear like the background info on what specifically you learned from getting chewed out by Mike and whoever else, or Ed Reed or Steven Jackson, whole world. What did you learn? How did you grow? What empathy do you now have? Without that, your statement is just your apology is kind of just dry to me. You're doing it because you got attacked, but you're not necessarily sorry that you said the thing. You're sorry that it upset people, and there's a difference there.
Hey, Evan, I got a question for you, and get back to the rest of the folks in a second. But Geno Smith contract guaranteed. The Seahawks decided to sign Colin Kaepernick next week, tomorrow. Are they stuck with Geno Smith? Do you guys know?
Well, Mike or Ben might be able to give the true facts on this, but I don't think Geno Smith has officially signed yet. Last I heard was there were talks. Mike or Ben, is that?
Geno has signed.
Oh, he did sign. Okay. I have not seen the contract figures. Do you guys have any reports on that or know anything about it?
I don't think so, but I know the Seahawks don't spend much money on backups, right? Look how much.
It's like that minimum.
Yeah,
I think
it's been over the cap.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically he has he has a $25,000 signing bonus. So basically, they could cut him tomorrow.
They could. But yeah, I don't think they will. I mean, honestly, I don't think Kaepernick they're not going to sign him, but could they? I mean, yeah, because first of all, you kind of have to look at like what Kaepernick wants. I mean, you'd think that he probably just wants to be in the league at this point. But like with the Seattle's backup job, right? Like Russ he never sits out, right? And so if you're a guy like Kaepernick, or if you're really any backup quarterback, you want to go to a place where you think you may have a chance to play, or the job is kind of, the quarterback situation is shaky and you may have an opportunity. But like I said, in Kaepernick's situation, you may just want to be in the league. Mm-hmm. But I'm just saying, like, I don't think the Seahawks are going to seriously consider signing him just because, they do have Geno, and then Anthony Gordon too, from Washington State. I don't see it I don't see them having a competition, because ultimately it's Russ, right? And they're going to have two backups compete in camp, right? So it has to be two. They're not going to have three backups in camp. So you're either saying, so what do you want, Anthony Gordon versus Colin Kaepernick, a guy who hasn't played professional football for 4 years, over Geno, who may not necessarily be as talented, but he's been around football, and he's just been in the environment longer, and he's kind of just a good veteran that you could kind of keep in the mix. I just don't see it happening. And I don't think the Seahawks would cut Anthony Gordon. Like, I don't think it would be like a Kaepernick versus a Geno Smith situation, because I think they're really high on Anthony Gordon. So I just don't see the fit there.
Well, I just have to jump in there for a second, because I mean, to answer the kind of the hypothetical question you're posing, yeah, I would take Colin Kaepernick, who hasn't played in 4 years, over Geno Smith.
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
From a football standpoint, I'm not even talking about
exactly.
And so my read on this is that the NFL is a follower league. Like, there's a few leaders in the league and there's a whole bunch of followers. And the league in general is clearly, according to, we'll see what happens in the court case and whatever, but basically is blackballed, Colin Kaepernick from being in the league. Nobody would let him cross the line. And I think that we've reached the point now where, what Kaepernick was doing back then that was so controversial at the time, I think there's room for it now. I think that the moments come, and that now you're going to have NFL teams that are all desperate to win, and the quarterback position is the most important. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities that there's actually like competition to sign Kaepernick after he was completely not persona non grata for 4 years. I would not be shocked if one team starts going after him. I would not be shocked if multiple teams go after him. And I'll tell you, as a Seahawks fan, I actively disliked Colin Kaepernick as a player. Just way before any of the controversial stuff happened. He's on my most hated rival team. I just didn't like him kissing his biceps and a bunch of that other stuff. But I would take him. I absolutely, like, from both a personal statement perspective as well as football player perspective. I think it'd be a wise move for the team to make. And
so you'd be comfortable with Kaepernick versus Anthony Gordon, essentially?
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about Geno Smith. The guy is like, come on. Yeah, like Kaepernick started in a Super Bowl and led multiple. He's an incredible talent. Whether some of those talents have waned over time, sure. Was he like eroding in terms of his performance, and does he have limitations to his game? Absolutely. But would he be one of the top backup quarterbacks in the NFL? No question.
He'd be the best backup, I think.
I think that's possible. I don't think I can say it for sure after all the time off, but I think it's real possible
I think your options are Mariota, Dalton, and Jameis as the other best backups.
Dalton signed with the Cowboys, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, like, if he signed, he'd be the best backup in the league.
Oh, yeah. I don't even think that's a question.
Well, some people hate Colin, so.
But, like, from a ceiling perspective, you can't tell me, like, Colin isn't better than Andy Dalton.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Like,
I don't think he'll be in the league.
You're gonna offend the ginger on the show.
I'm just speaking the truth here, and this isn't even Andy Dalton hate. I just saw Colin shred my team in 2014, 2013, 2014, 2015. Like, people always remember that last, year that he got benched for Blaine Gabbert. But before that, Colin was really damn good. Like, do you guys remember that game he had against the Packers in the playoffs where he absolutely shred them?
Yeah, ran for like 200 yards or something like that.
Yeah, he's crazy. He's super talented.
Yeah, and I think his last game in the NFL was what, against the Seahawks, I would say. Someone might have to fact check me on that. I'm pretty sure it was like week 16 or 17 or something like that. And we just saw him throw in Georgia in November. It looked fine. I talked to people at the combine about it. I mean, yeah, he looked like an NFL quarterback. No, from what I gathered, not many, if any, teams looked at him throw in Georgia and were like, oh man, this guy blows, right? Like no one was thinking that. I don't think the Seahawks would sign him, but if they did, what it would really do for Colin? Because the Seahawks, Colin wants a job. Like I do know that. I have like very 100% sure of that. 100% sure he would play for the Seahawks as well if they offered. Just trust me on that. And then I think what it would really do, because the Seahawks backup job is probably the least desirable in the league, but what it would do if there's a preseason, well, boom, now he's got updated tape. Right, like now you have every other reason to play Russ for like a snap or a series, and then just let Colin and Geno or Gordo do whatever after that. And if you're Colin, you're just like any other guy. You just want tape. Some teams won't be brave enough to be that first team to sign him, but I can guarantee all 31 teams will be watching the hell out of Seahawks preseason games to see if Colin still got it, and whether it's good or bad, like it'll just be an opportunity. And I honestly think it would be good. Problem is he'd be playing behind a really bad like backup O-line and stuff like that. But that's the case for every backup. So I think
we know that the quarterback sacks are a quarterback stat, though, right?
Are we on board with that here? Because I actually like that. I like the idea of the sack being a quarterback thing.
It's a good point by Mike too. The Jets a couple of years ago signed Teddy Bridgewater, and they traded him after the preseason for a third-round pick. So even from a football standpoint, just showcase him to the league. That could lead to a trade.
Yeah, Brett Hundley. Seahawks traded for him after the preseason in 20 whatever year that was. Yeah. You just need tape. In the NFL, you need tape. That's why the XFL and stuff like that was such a big deal. They had no tape.
If he got on a team, if he was able to finally like break that barrier that barricade that's been put in front of him, I mean, teams like I mean, look at how many players that they've let back in the league for, all sorts of things that, were literally like criminal acts versus kneeling on a field. Like, I mean, I think people will come up with reasons to win. And I think Kaepernick he still would be one of the best 30 quarterbacks in the NFL.
You know what this reminds me of? You know who the stupidest team in the NFL is? It's the fucking Chicago Bears. They've been rolling out Mitch Trubisky for like 3 years straight. Dude who can't throw a slant. Like, that team has a good roster. And with Colin Kaepernick, they'd be pretty damn good. It just blows my mind that some of these teams won't consider them.
Yeah, I think the Jags from 2017 and the Bears from 2018. So those teams, they have their guys, whatever, and I think they each won the divisions those years. I think each team in the next season should have been looking at Kaepernick.
Yeah.
2017 Jags should have learned, like, we have a ceiling with this Bortles cat. We do. And it's not the Super Bowl. Like, we can get close, but we're not going to get there if this is the dude. 2018, I would have been rolling with Colin. And then the Bears, I think they went 12-4 with Mitch that year, where their defense was just disgustingly good.
Mm-hmm.
The ceiling with Mitch is not high. Like, I would have been on the Colin thing, because, like, you put Colin with that defense, their defense was low. They beat the snot out the Seahawks. Like, the score wasn't high, but you know what I mean. You guys watched that. Seahawks couldn't move the ball for 59 minutes. So yeah, no, those two teams I think of the most. With like the roster is already there, right? You just need, you're a quarterback away. I know it's a big piece, but like that's the piece that those teams needed. If you guys could think of any more, remind me. But those two come to mind in the last like 3 years.
Those are good examples, and we're going to be wrapping up here in 5-10 minutes. But I do have to ask you guys like a question that is not specific to this topic, but definitely specific to the Seahawks. People want to know is Ben. I'll ask it to you. Pass rush is still a question. What the heck is going to happen with Clowney? Like, there's all these weird messages still coming out. Everson Griffin still hasn't signed. Like, it's a weird situation with some of these guys. What do you expect to really be the forcing function that like actually gets movement to happen on where Clowney lands?
On Clowney? Well, I mean, I don't know about y'all, but I mean, that ship has sailed. I mean, from the Seahawks perspective, I mean, if you're a Seahawks fan and you've been clinging to that, like you got to let it go, because it's just not happening at this point. I mean, I think Everson Griffin would be a good fit, and obviously he has familiarity with Pete. But yeah, this pass rush, I mean, they need one guy. Like, even if it can't be like a tier 1 guy, they need a tier 2 guy. That they reloaded the secondary is improved, right? They added Quentin Dunbar, assuming, all the legal issues are going to be, a thing of the past by the time the season starts. That secondary is better. Marquise Blair has another year under his belt. Quandre Diggs is going to be there a full season. The secondary is fine. It's the pass rush, right? And with the pass rush as currently constructed, I think you're asking too much of Darrell Taylor. I think you're asking too much of Alden Robinson. I think you're asking LJ Collier to take a leap I'm not sure he can make. I think Rasheem Green is going to have to, he's going to have another big year. I think he led them with like 4 sacks, which is, a problem. But yeah, unless they need one guy, like I said, it's if you think it still can be Clowney, I think you're delusional. I think you just got to move on. I still think they could get, one of the guys that's left, like an Everson Griffin. But if not, you're really expecting the guys they have, like the rookies or, one of the second, third year guys to ascend to into a role that maybe they're not ready for. And, also you're kind of, I guess they're kind of expecting Jaron Reed will kind of bounce back. Obviously, he missed the first 6 games of last season because of that suspension. So I get, that they're probably, maybe they think, they'll get another 10 sacks out of him and, that'll kind of mitigate whatever they don't get from the outside. I don't know. But in my opinion, Mike will probably touch on this as well, but I think they still need a guy because you're just expecting too much of, kind of what you have.
Yeah, Nathan, I got to come to you real quick before we go to Mike and see if you have questions. But do you think it's more likely that the Seahawks sign another running back or that they sign another pass rusher?
I don't want to answer. But
we know the answer.
Ben and Mike, so what happened with Clowney? I'm curious, or what do you think has happened with Clowney? Did it just get hung up on COVID and no physical? Is he just being unreasonable with what he's asking? Did this sour the relationship somewhere along the line? Is it kind of a little of everything? How did this? They went into the draft or free agency and everything talking about how important he was and how much they wanted to get him back, and it sounded like he wanted to come back, and it sounded like he really wanted to be traded here, way back when that happened. And now we're just kind of at the point where it feels like it's almost hopeless. So what changed there? Do you guys have any idea on that?
Well, so going to Indianapolis for the combine was really interesting because I talked to a lot of people just in passing or whatever about Clowney. And it was fascinating to me how many people who still believed in the optics of giving someone $20 million a year with however many sacks he had. With all the other advanced numbers we have, the optics of that still matter to a lot of teams, according to what I was hearing. So going in, going into the combine, I was like, oh yeah, no, he'll get a lot of money. And then coming out of it, I was like, oh damn, there's still teams who won't give him 20 million because of the sacks, ignoring pressure numbers or whatever. So I think that played a role. You got a lot of teams who are just $20 million, kiss my ass. That happened. Then you got, okay, he's coming off the injury. So he can't travel. I think that was part of it with Corona and everything as well. And specifically with the Seahawks, well, the reason why I think the ship has sailed, I agree with Ben. The Seahawks are cheap, man. Their deal is not going to have gotten better 3 months later. They spent the money. The money's gone. It's my understanding the Seahawks lowballed Clowney bad. That offer wasn't. They was some millions off.
Like a Golden Tate type of offer.
What they offer Tate? I can't remember.
It
offered
was
him 4 or 6 or something.
It was
crazy.
something horrendous.
And then he got 8 or something, I think.
Yeah, I don't remember what he got from Detroit. I can't remember what he got. What they offered.
I think what he got with Detroit was $32 million over 4 years, and then I think the Seahawks offered him $4 million a year or something like that.
Ooh. Yeah, they're let's just say this: the Seahawks were off. And that it's not going to get better. That was what March. I want to say somewhere in the teens, right? That deal ain't gonna get better 3 months later when they done spent up all the money. So I think that's the biggest issue. I think as soon as Clowney can travel to teams and get people to look at his body and everything, I think Todd Gurley just was able to travel and get a physical to the Falcons. So if I don't know how that works with the rest of the league, but if he can do that, that should allow Clowney to do the same. So I imagine he should be getting paid here pretty soon as long as he can travel. But yeah, Nathan, I do think it's a bunch of things. With the Seahawks, though, it was more dude, you're asking for way too much. Our pass rush sucked when we had you. You know what I'm saying? It's not like it's going to magically, become great as soon as we give you $20 million more. That's a year. That's
our team worse. We can't use it.
Yeah, no, that's not how that works. At least from the Seahawks point of view.
Yeah.
Any other questions you guys got as we anyone want to take final question for the fellows before we wrap up for the night?
Yeah, I got a question for each of you right off the bat. First thing that comes to mind, record prediction, way too early record prediction for the Seahawks 2020 season. Ben, I'll start with you.
11-5.
Mike?
10-6.
Interesting.
Yeah, can't win a division with no pass rush. It's just a
And
fact.
without, I mean, the offensive line too. I mean, you know, I mean that whole experiment is going to be interesting, but you just look at the fact that they're going to, have 4 new starters, right? And you're not getting any of this offseason time. It's going to have to go in training camp, try and figure it out. They're not going to. I'm confident they're not going to be better than they were last year, and they already have their issues, right? They're fine in run blocking, but the pass pro is all over. I just think it's going to be an issue. So yeah,
that's an increasing narrative I'm hearing from people. I think I saw that in the Seattle Times as well. I think it might have been Bob writing about that. Yeah, the offensive line will probably be worse. It's younger, or there's more question marks, and that's interesting. And this whole narrative about whether they're better or worse, that would be another conversation for another pod about going position group by position group. I think there's a case to be made that there's a number of position groups that are better, and some of them that are actually really important position groups that are better, including, I personally think the offensive line has a potential to be significantly better than it was. And I think the cornerback position could be meaningfully better. I think the safety position with Quandre Diggs for a full year and Marquise Blair with development could be significantly better. Those are a lot of places. And I think the wide receiver position with a year of development for DK and other pieces could be meaningfully better. So it's interesting. Tight end should be significantly better. So there's a lot of groups that you could make the case, and even linebacker, depending on where Brooks goes in, and Irvin at Sam. I mean, God, Will Kendricks was anyway. So it's interesting because I think we generally all agree with you that they don't seem better than they did last year. I think it's almost all because of the pass rush. I think we all are that pass rush was horrible, and how could they not have fixed it? But
secondary is good enough to overcome having no pass rush.
Yeah,
I think that's they work hand in hand. I think the secondary, from a talent perspective, with like you said, Diggs a whole year, Dunbar, it's great. No one can cover forever.
Yeah, right.
I don't give a damn who you are. If the Legion of Boom had this same pass rush, their numbers would have been way different. I guarantee you that. It all works together. It's a lot easier to put up the numbers they put in terms of pass defense when it's Cliff and Mike coming off the edge, every snap. That matters to the secondary there. I know Shaq's good. I think Dunbar's good. There's just a difference when you have to cover for so damn long. You know what I mean?
100%.
All right, I got one more prediction question if we're doing prediction questions.
Yeah.
Is this the year that we finally see Russell get an MVP vote? Is it going to happen? No?
It's not like the NBA though. You know what I'm saying? You can only vote. I believe you can only vote for the guy you think should win. So that's very different than other MVP voting. So it's not like this first, second, third place voting. Someone can maybe look this up. I'm pretty sure you can only vote for the guy you think can win it. So it's not like you just if you give Russ a vote, that means you think Russ should have won. Last year, that would have meant giving him a vote and not voting for Lamar Jackson, right? That's how you get your shit revoked. You know what I mean? So I think for real, I think Lamar was crazy. And then the year before that, that would have meant voting for Russ over Mahomes, right? Again, that's how you get your shit revoked. So I don't think that's going to happen. So if you could have first, second place, whatever, then perhaps, but it doesn't work like that. You can only vote for the guy. That's why it's so weird. Bobby got one. Who I think he got one over Cam Newton that year, which is what the hell? Love Bobby. You see what Cam did when his number one receiver was Ted Ginn? Come on, man. That's an MVP right there. So, yeah, no, I think he'll have a good year, but he would have to be the unanimous, very clear, you're the dude to get a vote. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Mike. I just don't see it happening unless, if you guys remember at the start of last season, people were like, oh, Russ MVP. I think it was the first, 5-6 games of the season, he was the front runner for MVP before Lamar just kind of went off. So I think for Russ to get, to get one vote, I think he just has to ball out like crazy the entire season. And he's been doing that, right? He's a superstar in his own right, but I think he just has to be at such a blazing hot start like he was last year to even get a vote.
Can I make a prediction real quick?
Yeah.
So in Russ's 3 best years, I think that he would have had a shot. He got beat by Cam, 2015, Mahomes, and then Lamar. I think that's gonna happen again. I would guess. My guess would be that like Kyler has that type of year.
Holy cow!
Where
What?
I mean, I don't disagree with you,
You're
but
gonna
that's
get
a
Evan all excited.
Kyler Murray is good.
Oh
You cannot.
my God.
He is fucking good. I'm
Evan-
telling you.
He is like a few days or weeks or years away from having frosted tips and an upside down and backwards.
Kyler Murray
visor
right now
and being
is
a
the second
true
best
Cardinals
quarterback in the
fan.
NFC West. I'm telling you that.
Yeah,
right?
but that's not saying much.
The other quarterbacks are paid 30 something mil per year.
Yeah, but Kyler's a lot better than both those guys. I don't think that's
Yeah, I mean, there's a big difference between Kyler Murray being good and in his second year being an MVP.
Hey man, he's gonna have
created-
DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, who knows, man?
Yeah, I think Kyler's the real deal, man.
Yeah.
But
He could have a big year. I don't think MVP stratosphere.
better than
but-
Mahomes, better than Russell, better than Lamar. Like, come
no,
on.
you don't got to be better than somebody to win MVP. You know what I
For the
mean? You just have to have the better year.
You have to have
Yeah.
Hopkins and Cliff Kingsbury as your coach and just throw a ton, and there you go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Surprise.
When you have the best head coach in the NFC West, it's not that hard.
I know. I'm surprised you guys like him so much since they started scoring more when they started running the ball more. And he's very vocal about that.
End the show. End the show.
Good night, everybody.
End it early.
On that note, I want to thank our guests, Ben Arthur over at seattlepi.com. Please make sure you check him out at seattlepi.com and on Twitter at Ben Y. Arthur, as well as Michael Sean Dugar and is at Mike, M-I-K-E Dugar on Twitter. And mild thanks to the rest of the guys, Nathan and Jeff and Evan. You guys did all right. Always good to have you and fun to see you guys again. And on a serious note, lots of stuff going on. A lot of folks that could use a hand, both from what's going on with COVID, what's going on with Black Lives Matter. Let's be a community, folks. You know, love your brothers, love your sisters, and really treat people like people and try to turn off social media a little bit and look people in the face and in the eye and have a real conversation with them about what's going on in their lives and how you can help. I think we should all be doing that much more often and got no excuse because there's nothing else to do right now, other than sit around and talk to people. So, all right. Thanks for those that donated. We will make sure and announce what we were able to raise for Black Lives Matter today. Important from our perspective to be very direct about our support for that organization. There's a lot of great organizations. Another one I'd call out for folks, NAACP Legal Defense Fund is another one that I personally have supported a lot and believe in a lot and what they've been doing. So a lot of great opportunities to help. Thank you all for showing up and being a great part of our community. You can sign up over at patreon.com/hawkblogger. That's where we get, a lot of our support and our charitable donations built up over the year. So please do that. Subscribe if you haven't already. And with that, we will say good night. Take care, everybody.